Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Play, impacting more than just gaming. I'm your founder and host, Mohammed, otherwise known as Itzigu. We are your one-stop news tab for the latest and greatest across gaming, tech, entertainment, sports, and music. Plus, we are amplifying voices from those respective fields and having their stories told here on the Impact Play. You can join us and record the show live over at twitch.tv/the and by clicking on the notification bell so you will be notified when we do go live, or later on YouTube, or even on your favorite podcast platform. Just simply search for the Impact Play. However you consume our content, wherever you consume it, we are there. Your support keeps the lights running and keeps the content rolling. You can support us over at anchor.fm/the/support or via Patreon. Server Recruits and above get the show ad-free. Go to Recruits and above, have exclusive access to not only the post show, but they can even call in to be a part of the live show experience, plus early access and so much more. Learn more and become a Patreon supporter today at patreon.com/the/play. Or even by using our creator code THEIMPACTPLAY. So we are an Epic partner. So with every purchase you make within the Epic store, when you use that creator code, we do get a commission to help support the show, further elevate it to take us to newer heights and no extra cost to you. It's just one of the many ways you can support us. You can support us here at the Impact Play. Alrighty folks, welcome to our Day 3 coverage of Momocon, episode 170 from Momocon 2022. So on this episode, we have a whole bunch of interviews. It was a press-style interview throughout a multitude of guests, ranging from Brett Iwan, the original voice of Mickey Mouse, to Jeff Ramsey, and even Jeremy Dooley, which are the OGs from the early days of Rooster Teeth, to even Jen Taylor, which is the voice of Cortana for the game as well as the live action Halo TV series. So I hope you guys enjoy the interviews, and let us know your thoughts on this as well. So stay tuned and enjoy.
So I know you worked on Pulp Fiction, so I was wondering.
No, I didn't. That's an internet myth. I didn't work on Pulp Fiction. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, especially things that happened before you were born.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm kidding. Yes.
So I was gonna ask, what was the energy like working with people like John Travolta and Samuel Jackson?
Well, it's interesting because I'd say to this day, Pulp Fiction is one of the best sets I've been on in my entire career, and I credit that to the quality of the script. I mean, the fact that he was able to make a movie with John Travolta, Bruce Willis, Uma Thurman, Sam Jackson for under $8 million was because everybody read that dang script and was like, I need to be in this movie. I want to be a part of this. And everybody from the cast to the crew was there because they wanted to be there, not just for the paycheck, to be a part of this. And, you know, I mean, usually I came in the last month of the shoot. Usually by that point, you know, everybody's either broken up or, you know, already looking for their next job. But on Pulp Fiction, every Friday night, it's like, pass around a flyer. This is where we're going for drinks. And everybody went, even John Travolta.
So you was a writer for Mad TV. Do you have any scripts that you felt like was going too far?
I was not technically a writer on Mad TV because they refused to give the cast writing credits.
Wow.
It wasn't until my final season when I said, you got this character, the UPS guy that everybody loves, I ain't doing a sketch unless you let me write it. And that was the only way I was able to get a writing credit on Mad TV.
So you just wrote for that character only?
Well, no, the thing was, in sketch comedy, anybody who's worked on SNL or any sketch show will tell you, the actors always write.
Yep.
Because especially on Mad TV, I mean, a lot of the conceptual stuff came from the writers, but the character stuff came from the actors. You know, because we mostly created those characters. I'd say the one exception was the Funky Walker Dirty Talker character. One of the writers, Gary Campbell, came up with that sketch in, I think, the second season. And I was like, well, black dude dancing around? No, I ain't doing that. But then over the summer, I thought, actually, that's kind of funny. He's funky and he's grooving. And then I came back to Gary, like, hey, can we do that sketch? He didn't even remember. Like, which one? But and then Mary Shear was pregnant, and she had been doing this character. She was doing the lady with all the plastic surgery, and that was our gimmick for guest stars, interviewing guest stars. But when Mary went away, we needed another sketch where we could have guest stars. Like, how about this funky walking dirty talker? Like, okay, sure. All right, now you're doing a sketch with Halle Berry, Jennifer Love Hewitt. I'm like, yes. Actually, that's where I first met Gilbert Gottfried. Rest in peace.
As far as your voice acting chart with all the DC characters, are you going to be acting live action in a superhero medium?
You're asking me if I'm going to be acting in the DC superhero universe live action? Why are you asking an actor what jobs the actor's going to get? I don't go into DC and go boom, boom, boom. Let me play this. That's not how it works. Ask Michael B. Jordan.
In your opinion, which is your most iconic character that you voice?
I'm sorry, say that again louder.
In your opinion, which is your most iconic character that you voice? Most iconic character you voice?
Well, that's actually an unanswerable question, because as a performer, I don't decide what is iconic. That is the audience's job over time. Because I think about this all the time. There were stars in the 30s and 40s who were the hugest stars who we had no idea. And the same thing happens with work, especially voiceover. There's stuff people watched when they were kids that they still hold on to 20 years later. There's other stuff that went down the toilet with that cereal.
So, given the fact that you have over 200 credits on acting credits, what would you say has been your most challenging role for you personally? What's an accomplishment that you nailed something completely different?
Well, the most challenging roles are the bad ones, because it's always easier to work with a great script and amazingly creative people like Gendy Tartakovsky, Dave Filoni, Bruce Timm, Dwayne McDuffie. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the most amazingly talented writers and creators, Red Weissman on Young Justice, So all of that work, which is usually the work that people respond to and hold on to for generations, those were all easy, but crappy one episode of Pound Puppies that nobody even remembers I was in.
I remember the show. I don't remember much else about it.
No, actually, no, Pound Puppies was actually a cute
It was
show.
a cute show.
But there are, I don't remember the bad ones, because you can't let that sit in your head. That drags you down. Better to just live in the power and light of the great ones, and hope they bring me back.
A few years ago, we got the conclusion to Samurai Jack. What was the experience like from the time that the last season aired to the final season? Did you ever think that it would come back? And how was the experience working on the final season?
Well, the bringing back of Samurai Jack was wonderful on a number of levels. One, because Gendy wrapped up that series in the most incredible way. It was 14 years from when we finished the first run to the final wrap-up season. And he had always wanted to complete the story. And he'd been talking about it since, the original run, which makes sense, because when you put it in the dang theme song, gotta get back to the past, then you gotta do it. It's like Friends, I'll be there for you. They can't not be there for each other. It says it in the song. But the fact that he took those 14 years, I look at that season 5 of Samurai Jack as like, this is what the show would have evolved into had we kept going for the 14 seasons. Because now Jack was in a whole different place, and it was dark, he lost his sword, it's like, and who has the talent to do that. I mean, we've seen a lot of franchises where they're like, oh, let's go to this, let's go to that. I've never seen anybody do it that well. So, and it also, you know, as an actor, made me push my game up to another level. It's like, oh dang, I got more lines in this one season than I had in all 4 previous weeks. And it's like heavily emotional, you know, and I remember, I mean, I've worked with Tara Strong for 10, 15, 20 years, and she blew me away and said, I've never seen you do something that amazing. You know, so it was a gift. You know.
Given
You and then
The second round.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know you voiced Futurama, and like I was gonna ask you like if there's like Futurama, Simpsons, Family Guy, like that type of humor. Like what's your like favorite type of show like out of those?
Well, actually, that's interesting. I mean, I don't think anybody would say that the humor in Family Guy is similar to the humor in Futurama or The Simpsons.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on the same channel, but those are not the same shows.
Yeah.
Actually, Futurama and The Simpsons aren't even the same kind of comedy. But the one thing they all have in common is incredibly talented writers. And the fact that, you know, Futurama and Family Guy both came back from the dead. You know, I don't know. Although maybe Futurama, Family Guy, Samurai Jack shows coming back from, you know, being canceled, and what do they all have in common? Me.
So, you've been in the game for so long, you've done so much, and you've seen the industry transform in many different ways. What advice could you offer aspiring voice actors, aspiring actors in both live action and animation, trying to break into the industry, how to hone their craft, and how to really get to eventually become someone on your caliber?
Well, it's interesting because you get asked a lot, you know, what advice would you give to aspiring voice actors? I'm like, I'm old. The world I started voice acting in is completely different from the world now. So my advice would be relatively useless. Unless I can say, okay, step 1, get a time machine, go back 25 years, and then do this. Start out on a sketch comedy show, and do a lot of characters, and then figure out, oh, wait, if I did this without wigs and makeup, I could just change the voices. That'd be a lot easier. And then start your voiceover career like that. But again, not really applicable. Although, the real advice that I would give to people is understand that voice acting is a misnomer because the acting comes before the voice. It is more important to be able to bring this imaginary character to life for an audience. Then you make funny voices. You know, once you can, you know, embody a character, then what you do with the voice, that comes secondary.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
So since you voice so many characters and are basically representation of all these characters you voice, how does it make you feel knowing that generations of people of color look up to you and the characters you play in the roles? How does that make you feel that people look up to you?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I started out doing, you know, voices before representation was on anybody's mind. I mean, back in the 90s, you know, if it was a leading character of color, then they would make sure to cast a person of color. It's like, well, because we're gonna have to have them do press. But secondary characters, nobody cared about. Like if it's, you know, character got 3 lines, who's a black guy, it's like, we ain't gonna write an extra paycheck for that. Which is why, when I was starting out as an actor of color, you couldn't survive if you could only voice one kind of character, because there weren't enough roles that were specifically going to be cast by actors of color. So, you know, nowadays, you know, this whole idea about, you know, authenticity, the authenticity of the casting is far less important than the authenticity of the story. Whose perspective is being put out there. That's what's important about representation. That's why Static Shock was so, important at the time. Not just the color of his skin, but the story they were telling. The fact that this was the world of Dakota that it was set in reflected the real world that we as people of color lived in. And like, even though it was imaginary, it was superheroes, there were issues that we reflected. It's like, oh yes, I recognize that, which I think was the similar impact of Spider-Man in the 60s. Because before that, superheroes were fantasy. Like, nobody really relates to Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I remember when I was being chased by orcs. No. But when you have stories like Spider-Man or Static Shock, where they're dealing with emotions, situations that we as real people in the world deal with, but it's also fantasy and powers, and superhero, that is very, very special. And for so many generations, people of color did not, get stories like that. I mean, if there was somebody of color in some thing, it was rarely fantasy. It was way too real. It was the defiant ones. Sidney Poitier's tied, handcuffed to another dude, But the fact that, that the worlds of fantasy and, video games and all of that stuff are now becoming more diverse with more diverse perspectives. That is the stuff that's powerful. That's what's important.
Next, go ahead.
Oh, I can take it.
We have one. We have one, and then you can go next, and then you can go next.
Oh, okay.
I can do it.
Okay.
Somebody asked me something.
There's no awestruck.
I doubt that.
So, how does it feel to voice, such an iconic character?
Yeah, there's no doubt Mickey is iconic, and with that comes a little bit of intimidation. It's daunting because first and foremost, I'm a huge Walt Disney fan. And Mickey Mouse fan by extension. So I grew up watching all the classic stuff, all the classic Walt TV shows, and the history, the legacy is not lost on me. So there's a little bit of pressure that comes with it. But as intimidating as that can be, the joy that you see people experience because of this character is amazing. And that's like, it's true motivation to see, to play even the smallest part of something that's that effective is pretty cool.
Speaking of Mickey, how's the call that you got the part?
I'm sorry, how is the?
When you got the call, how was it?
Yeah, it was extremely surreal when I got the notification that I was cast. So it was a lengthy process that took place, and I had started working on some jobs on kind of a trial basis, if you will. And it was after a couple of those sessions that they actually sat me down before I left, and they said, "We'd love for you to be the guy." At the time, I was living out of state in Kansas City, Missouri, so it required me moving. So there's a lot of moving parts when that happened. There was a lot to take in, but it was super surreal. I was not too far away. Where we were recording was pretty close to the Walt Disney Studio lot. And as cheesy as it is, I took a moment to just go walk around the lot perimeter and think about how exciting it was, and kind of anticipate how much my life was going to change. And I just remember, kind of just being in awe. I was kind of numb. It's a big thing to be told, that your life's going to change like that. So really surreal.
So what steps did you take to perfect or practice the Mickey voice?
Because I was such a fan, I grew up listening to a lot of Mickey Mouse soundtracks, albums, and all of that stuff. And without even really intentionally trying to practice, I was just talking along with them. So when I'd watch the old cartoon shorts, or when I'd listen to the records, I just kind of talk like Mickey, oh boy, just for fun. And then I was doing that for friends and family, just to kind of give them a laugh. But when the audition came across my inbox, then that's the first time I really sat down to kind of practice it. And the audition included lines from everything from stuff Walt Disney had done, all the way up to like the intro to the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, which Wayne Allwine had worked on. Wayne Allwine was my predecessor and had done the voice for 32 years. So, the audition process was to find a voice match for what we knew Mickey to sound like currently, but also to kind of preserve that legacy, because naturally we all have different voices. 3 guys have done the voice of Mickey up to that point, so they're all slightly different, but it was kind of capturing the essence and then sounding as close as possible. So I definitely listened over and over and over again and practiced before that audition. But I really think the real honing of the skills came after I'd been cast, and it's just that it's been 13 years at this point, and those first few years were extremely formative for me because it was just every project we did taught me something new, and a lot of the projects were either adding to or updating projects that Wayne Allwine had already done, and so that involved kind of like a listen and repeat type of situation where they play Wayne's lines and then I would record the new version of them. So that was really helpful because he passed away unfortunately before I was cast, and I was supposed to be his understudy, so it was going to be like a in-person learning thing, and I didn't get that chance. But those projects that we did where we kind of replaced and updated, those really helped. So it's kind of learning on the fly, on the job training as it were.
Yesterday we had an interview with Bill Farmer, who was Goofy.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was going to ask, what was it like working with him as well as the other voice actors for the Walt Disney Company? What is that experience like?
That's unbelievable for me. I think about being like a 7-year-old Disney fan, and the fact that Bill is one of my best friends now is crazy. I was just reflecting on this last night. Actually, I was in college and I found out that Bill was going to be making an appearance at a store in the Sacramento area where my family lives, and I begged my parents and my brothers to go down and meet him. I was like, please take my Goofy DVD set and have him sign it or something. So they went down and they met Bill. I still have that box set with a little Polaroid of him and my 2 brothers, and they're really young. It's just funny to me that now, he is one of my greatest friends. I've learned so much from him. He's he's so talented, so humble, and he's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's really, whether he knows it or not, been a mentor to me, and kind of demonstrated how we as the voice actors behind these characters should respect the characters, should treat the characters, and how we should carry on that legacy. I think he's a great example of it. He's a Disney legend. I strive to be similar to him, but it's a lot of fun. They're also talented. I had the privilege of, even though I didn't get to meet Wayne, his wife Lucy Taylor was the voice of Minnie Mouse up until a few years ago. Sadly, we lost her, and she was a force. She was everything you would want the voice of Minnie Mouse to be. She was spunky. She was sweet. She was funny. She gave the best hugs. And I'm talking about like the type of hugs that if you had a little life meter next to you, it'd be like, it just filled you up. She was a wonderful person. So yeah, I keep using the word surreal, but my experience with those people and with this job, everything's surreal. It is kind of the embodiment of Disney magic. I've learned so much from them. It's an honor to work alongside of them, and truthfully, I don't feel like I deserve it. It's still kind of like, why are you letting me do this with you guys? Because they're so talented. They're amazing people.
So, from all the farmer making voice actors, do you feel like you have a big shoes to fill?
Yes, particularly when it comes to Walt Disney, because Walt was the first voice of Mickey, starting all the way back in 1928, and I can't think of any bigger shoes to fill. We were about the same height, so he probably wore a similar size shoe to me, but still, the metaphorical shoes. They were all tremendous talents in their own right. Walt being Walt and everything he brought to the character, let alone to the company and into the world and to imagination. Jimmy McDonald was the second voice, and he was a sound effects guru at the studio. So he was known for all the Foley sound effects he did on very early Disney films. Everything from The Fire and Bambi to the train whistle in Dumbo to, you know, countless other things. He was the guy who kind of imagined how you made those sounds for recording. And he took over for Walt Disney around 1947 when Walt was simply too busy. He asked Jimmy, he said, "Can you do Mickey's voice?" Jimmy said, "Oh, I don't know." And Walt said, "Well, you try." And when Jimmy did it, he said, "You're gonna do it from now on, I'm too busy." And then Wayne Allwine came into the picture around 1977 when they were casting for the new Mickey Mouse Club at the time in the 70s. And they had done some auditions. They I guess, I can't remember if they didn't find anybody or they're having trouble having people show up for them. I think there was an opening. Yeah, somebody didn't show up, and so they called down to the sound effects studio, which Wayne was working with Jimmy at the time in that office, and they said, send him up, have him do Mickey's voice. He auditioned. Later on, he was walking on the line. Somebody came up to him and said, "Hey, you need to join SAG. You're going to be the next voice of Mickey." And then Wayne was a talented musician, sound engineer, sound effects guru, and you know, gave so much heart and soul to Mickey. You know, he probably talked more as Mickey than any other actor up to that point, because that's when Disney Channel came onto the picture. Disney parks were expanding, toys, manufacturing, all of that stuff. So you think about 32 years in that role. That guy talked a lot. He said, "Oh boy," a lot. Yeah, so they're all just, they're amazingly talented people. Again, I'm humbled to follow in their footsteps. Yeah, it's crazy intimidating, but none more than Walt Disney himself. Like I said, you know, I wanted to be an artist because of Walt Disney. I wanted to be an animator because of Walt Disney. I continue to design and build things because of Walt Disney. So yeah, I'm a trained dork because of Walt Disney. Not necessarily because of, but in conjunction with.
We have time for one more question.
Momocon being a combination of video games and animation, how do you feel about the video game Kingdom Hearts?
Kingdom Hearts is amazing. And I think, first and foremost, it's amazing because of the fandom behind it. And I'd be lying if I said I haven't learned a lot about the series because of the fans. You know, I came in after 1 and 2 had already been done, and Wayne Allwine worked on those. And then I started with Birth by Sleep, I believe was my first Kingdom Hearts one, followed by Dream Drop Distance, all the way up to Kingdom Hearts 3. And it's an experience like no other because of the fandom behind it, because of the storytelling, and because Mickey gets to play a version of himself that you don't see anywhere else. You know, King Mickey is pretty cool. And if I can say, I'm not gonna say it, but you know what I'm thinking, he's pretty bad. Beep. The voice of Mickey wouldn't say that. But no, it's really cool. It's cool to, you know, it's a different acting style. It asks a little bit more of us as performers to kind of get into that nitty-gritty place that's a little bit more real, I guess, realistic, real world than, you know, a magical cartoon world would be. So it's really cool. I have a lot of fun with it. I'm looking forward to whatever the future holds for the series.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Doing very well.
How did you enjoy the con?
I'm really enjoying Momocon. I mean, I was supposed to come in 2020, kept getting pushed back, you know, because of the pandemic. And never been to Momocon before. It's a lot larger than I thought it was going to be. Very cool convention. I haven't been to one before.
Oh, this is your first convention?
I've done Rooster Teeth's convention, RTX, a couple of times.
Okay.
But that's kind of a different environment. It's not really it's just centered around Rooster Teeth and not so much this, which is a hodgepodge of gaming, anime, cartoons, movies, all that. So I haven't been in that environment before.
Which would you say you enjoy more between RTX and here?
Ooh. So that's hard to judge because RTX is such a different world when I work for Rooster Teeth because almost everyone's there because of their love of Rooster Teeth. So it's like everyone at that convention knows me, really, because they're all there for Rooster Teeth. They see me on Rooster Teeth products. You know, it's hard to go anywhere in the convention because everyone just knows who you are. Here, some people will know me, but I can still just walk the floor and see all the sites, go to Artist Alley, like just enjoy that. So I do kind of like that. I like meeting fans, I like saying hi to people, signing things, taking pictures, but I also just kind of want to experience the con a little bit too.
So you've been working with Rooster Teeth and Achievement Hunter for, I want to say, well over 10 plus years. What was your favorite experience like in the beginning, like with Achievement Hunter? Because you guys have had the GTA Let's Plays, the Minecraft things. Which ones, like, what was your favorite experience early on?
So early on, we would do some live action videos every now and again. Either our shows Between the Games or Shenanigans. Shenanigans is more like pranking each other, usually me. And then Between the Games was just, literally between recording GTA and Minecraft, live action shoots that just spawned because we saw something stupid and Gavin would start filming and we would make these videos. Those were always my favorite because they were just spur of the moment. We were just completely being ourselves, doing these dumb ideas, things that people can't normally do, destroying walls or whatever we were doing. So early on, that was the best. Later on into Achievement Hunter, it was our show called Haunter, called it Achievement Haunter, where we went and hunted ghosts at haunted locations. And people don't really get a chance to do that, let alone with 5 of your best friends just out there yelling at ghosts, trying to get things to happen. It was so absurd, but that was, I think, my favorite production of all time.
I was gonna ask, has there ever been a moment where somebody was just messing around in the Haunter series and it's just like, okay, you did a little bit too much, or just a big prank where everybody's like, oh man.
Absolutely. We buried Gavin in a coffin. We put him in a coffin and we nailed it shut, but they were nails that, they were trick nails, so as we hammered them in, they kind of curved out, so they weren't really going in, but it felt to him like they were. And he had like an air tube coming out, but then we just buried it. Just threw dirt on there, and we kept asking the production, like, can we do this? Are we allowed to do this? Like, bury our friend? And they're like, he'll get back out, probably. And so we really pranked each other a lot on that show. We'd do stuff like that. We would lock people in places where they were really freaked out and have someone else sneak around behind them and mess with things. I mean, that was the point, because the premise we're going for is ghosts don't show up unless you're scared. So we had to start freaking people out to try to make things happen, was the premise.
What is the experience like now that you guys are getting into animation a lot more and you have your own original productions? Like, what is that experience like?
Well, in terms of Rooster Teeth and animation, they were working on, there wasn't a ton of things when I first joined. RVB was still kind of touching on animation. They were just like, it was still just machinimated, just Halo moving up and down, with like pieces of animation put in there. And then that grew, and then, Rooster Teeth did more original stuff. Camp was a 2D animated show, and a couple other animated shows. And then they made Ruby, and I was just talking about this with Jeff, that Ruby has kind of surpassed Rooster Teeth in that when it started, people said, oh, Ruby, that's that show by Rooster Teeth. And now it's people talk about Ruby and they go, what is a Rooster Teeth? They don't know, because it's just become its own entity. And people really love Ruby. So I love animated products, so seeing Rooster Teeth make more of them and bring in people from Rooster Teeth to voice the characters and having people in-house write for these shows. I love seeing that. It gives people more outlets to be creative, and they give a lot of opportunities for that.
I got one. Yes, Mohammed for the Impact Play. I have a question for you. Everything that you've done and all that you've accomplished thus far, if you could go back in time, is there anything that you would do differently?
Is there anything I would do differently at Achievement Hunter? I think early on, and a lot of people would have this in like what a dream job would be, which is what Achievement Hunter was to me. Early on, I said yes to pretty much everything. And there's some productions that I would do, and afterwards would feel a little bit like, was that a waste of my time? Should I have been putting my efforts towards something else? And so if I could go back, there's some productions that I did that I said yes to just to be a part of them because I wanted to be in as much as possible that I probably would have passed on. So I could have focused on other avenues because, and I think a lot of people will do that in certain places. Just say yes to everything, be a yes person. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do this. But at some point, you got to be a little more
strategic,
picky and choosy, right? Because you want to protect your identity. If you don't think something's going to work out, you can put yourself into it and really try to make that work out. But sometimes from the get-go, you're like, I don't think this production's going to really go anywhere, and kind of save some time. There was the biggest thing I regret now that I'm really thinking about it. I was working on a show that never ended up happening.
Wow.
We had a show called Grudge Night that we were working on, which was supposed to be like a wrestling show, where they would settle their disputes in video games. So they had promos and the teaser videos and all of that. There were announcers, but instead of wrestling matches, it was gameplay. It was gameplay competitions. And we worked on that for months, and the show never came out because they just canned it.
Wow. Okay.
So much time. It's just like it just didn't work out.
It's an experience. Appreciate it.
You got it.
I have one. Because I actually watched some shows, anime shows from Mr. T. Those is one of those really good. But did you ever think, from where you started, did you ever think it will go into like any animated TV shows?
So when I started with Achievement Hunter, I knew I was just coming in to do video game related stuff, right? And but I work very closely with Lindsay in Achievement Hunter, who voices Ruby. And as Ruby was starting up, I'm not someone who ever watched anime, and like I'm just starting to like watch that. And I know being in places like this, I was like, I gotta watch anime. I gotta get into that. And so like I didn't resonate with Ruby really, like I didn't fully understand it because I'd never watched anything like it. And I was like, this is a cool show. Like this might do kind of well. And then like watching it explode, and realizing how much people like love animation, characters, and the stories, especially like Eastern style storytelling that is in anime. It really like opened my eyes to another world of creativity that people are really, really into, really passionate about, that I wasn't aware of before I joined Rooster Teeth. So that was really cool seeing as that evolved over the years.
How has the experience been seeing Rooster Teeth grow from its beginnings to where it is now?
Yeah, I started watching Rooster Teeth because I was a fan before I was hired. So I started watching Rooster Teeth back in, it must have been like 2010-ish. I was in college, watching these really old videos of Jack and Jeff, watching Halo fails and stuff. And I put it up on the monitor in my college classroom while I was working. And then seeing that grow and grow, because it was 3 or 4 of them in Achievement Hunter, and then it grew to 6. And then they had editors, and then they had this post room, and then they opened it up to the community and said, you make videos, and we'll have this whole channel of just you making videos. And that's what myself and Matt Bragg did, just made videos to the point where they noticed us and brought us in as well. And even before I watched, Red vs. Blue was 4 or 5 of them just in a bedroom. That was it. That was Rooster Teeth. It was them in a bedroom. They got the helmet effect by calling each other and recording over the speakerphone. That's how it sounded, like they were talking in helmets. And now the company's got hundreds of employees and got these huge buildings that they all work in and everything. It's just insane watching it, and I have the pleasure of being able to talk to Jeff a lot, and he constantly is talking about how things were back then and how they grew and exploded, and he can't believe it and what it's turned into. But yeah, it's hard to look back and see the humble beginnings of like me sitting with Trevor Collins and recording a video for this community channel. His name was Reach Online back then. We just used to talk, and now he runs Achievement Hunter. Now he's like, he was my boss for a long time. So it's just really odd how things change and grow over time. But it's all people who are passionate. That's what made it grow.
Is there any projects that you guys are working on right now that you can at least like let us know to look forward to?
Oof. That's a. Okay, well, is there any projects that we're working on right now? Yes, that I can let you know. Well, okay, so there's a couple of big projects in the works right now. The fact is, like, could I let you know? Yeah, probably, because I'm a contractor for Rooster Teeth, right? I don't like work full time for them, so I don't know what trouble I would get into. But it was announced that there is a big project going on with State Farm that they're calling the Gamerhood Challenge, which involves a bunch of us doing a gaming tournament in basically a neighborhood that State Farm has built. So we all like have our houses and are having this tournament, and that's that starts. The first episode is this Wednesday, and then every Wednesday there's a new episode in June. So that will run for 5 weeks. And I also just finished filming another large project with Rooster Teeth that is a follow-up of their hardcore tabletop series. They did one in Monopoly, and they did another one I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically like bringing board game to life kind of thing in a tournament style. I can't say the game or what exactly it entails, but there's another one of those coming up. I think they'll announce it at RTX.
I think my last question would be, because you guys now have Death Battle under your hand, are you a fan of the series, and what is your favorite Death Battle that's coming out?
Oh gosh, I've seen quite a few of them, of the Death Battles. I don't watch them religiously. I don't know if I'd be able to pick off the top of my head a really amazing. I do think that the one I can remember, I think they did Goku and Superman one time. And I remember that one just being insane because it's these two insanely overpowered characters with like the craziest things that boost their power, with like the Super Saiyan and the different types of stars that boost Superman, like red giants or whatever. And they played with all of that, and it was all over space and then just destroying planets and stuff like that. I just remember that being so off the walls that I probably have to go with that one. They did a great job with it.
What is your most memorable, since you started at Hunter or Rooster Teeth, what's your most memorable moment with them?
There's a couple of moments that stick out to me. One of them was on Haunter. We were in some old mines in California. So we're in California, this like mining site, and there's this big metal structure. It was like a tower that went up like 400 feet into the air, and there's like these old rickety, rusty stairs that you have to go all the way up. And we got to the top platform. We couldn't like all be up there because they were too nervous about the structure, but I was standing on the very top platform with Jack. And so we're just like on the top of this old metal tower in California filming a ghost hunting show. And Jack and I were just asking each other, like, how did we get here? Like, what are we doing? We play Minecraft. Like, what the hell are we doing here? And that was a surreal moment of like what just gaming and making a channel that people want to watch can lead to, like these huge moments. The other moment that was a really big one for me was about a year after I started. I went to an RTX. It was like the first RTX where people kind of knew that I was part of the group, and they were doing an off-topic, which is AH's podcast. And so I walked out to do the panel, and we were all sitting on the table, and then out of nowhere, the whole audience, it was like 4,000 people, they just started chanting Lil J. They started chanting for me out of nowhere. And I just kind of sat there like with all these people chanting. It was so weird feeling. I was like, I didn't even do anything. Like they just are happy to be here and like see us. And that was another like overwhelming feeling of like, this is like crazy. This job is just insane. And like, so I get a little bit of that every time I come to a convention now and get to meet the fans, and they get very excited. And I say, I always tell them, I get it. Whenever a fan is like kind of shaking a little bit or saying, I'm getting kind of locked up, I don't know what to say, I always tell them, like, I went to PAX East before I worked at Achievement Hunter. I met Jack and Bernie and Monty, and I was the same way. I just like didn't know what to say. I was like really nervous. I just totally get it. And like anytime I can get a little taste of that, like coming to a convention, meeting fans, signing things, taking pictures, I take it because like it reminds me of that first moment.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're getting ready to start with our our next guest. And I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Jeff Ramsey, and I'm from Rooster Teeth Productions.
All right, perfect. Okay, please let me know when you have a question. And of course, when the other outlets get here, I'll keep it as a round robin.
Okay.
And all, and then we'll be doing Q&A for about 15 minutes, and then if you are open to taking pictures with the press, we'll
Sure.
do that for a few minutes, and then have you on your way because we want to be respectful of your time.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll kick off with a question. With you being with Rooster Tooth, and especially for me, I became aware of your outlet with Ruby, and it just took off like crazy. How was the whole coming up with the concept to have Ruby as part of your platform and many of the other shows you have to kind of have you stand out as this new entity for entertainment?
Well, Ruby was the creative vision of an exceptionally talented man who's unfortunately no longer with us, named Monty, who we were all fans of. He did a really popular piece of animation called Dead Fantasy, amidst some other Halo stuff. And we had been making Red vs. Blue for about 5 years, and we wanted to expand, but we were very limited in our capabilities. We wanted to move more into traditional animation. So we started to talk to Monty, and eventually we convinced him to work for us. And he began by kind of taking our cartoon Red vs. Blue to the next level, but in tandem, he was just this creative powerhouse, and he wanted to make his own anime, which I thought was a fantastic idea because we had been coming to conventions all across the world for years and years and years with our cartoon Red vs. Blue, and it was very apparent that anime was very, very popular. And I didn't see why we couldn't make one here in America, and so and Monty did.
Awesome. Well, we're very grateful for that.
Absolutely.
Any of those that are watching and haven't checked out Ruby, definitely check it out. You got a couple seasons to catch up on.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Definitely some very quality work. But one of the things that also I noticed with Rooster Tooth is you didn't stick to a particular look or feel. Like Ruby had a different look and feel for the animation for it versus some of the other shows you had. You didn't stick to a particular format. Was that intentional, or did you kind of have this particular vision to have that differences for no matter who is tuning in?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different. Productions that we've done have had different creative leads, and so they bring kind of their own flavor to the production, and then also just wanting to create a unique identity for each property, so that it looks and feels like it and nothing else. Hopefully. Yeah.
Nice. And I know that I'm not sure how long it's been going. That you have your own convention for Rooster Tooth, and that fans get to come and all. Was that part of the vision as you were developing it, or was it just something that ended up happening because of demand from the fans?
It was one of those things where, we started in 2003, and we did our first convention in 2003, and then we went from that one convention to doing probably 20 to 25 a year for the first 6 or 7 years, and very, very slowly over the course of that 6 or 7 years, the light bulb went off very dimly, but eventually, and we had the idea we could just do this ourselves and not have to leave town. And so we started the first RTX, I want to say in 2012 maybe. It was so long ago. And then we've done it every year since in the Austin Convention Center. July 1st to 3rd this year.
Okay. All right, so anybody that is watching our press outlets, please definitely check that out. Tickets are still available?
Yeah, tickets are available right now at rtxevent.com.
All right, awesome. And okay, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Mohammed from THEIMPACTPLAY.
Hey, Mohammed.
What is your most memorable moments from your early days at Rooster Teeth or even Red vs. Blue?
Oh gosh, it's well, I'm old enough now. I've been doing this for it'll be 20 years next year, that I have built up a fair amount of nostalgia, and so it's kind of hard to pick one. But I was, for some random reason, I was thinking earlier today about, I think around 2004, 2005, we got invited to San Jose, California, and we aired a season of Red vs. Blue on like a giant wraparound IMAX. And that sticks out as like a pretty surreal moment in the past, to see our dumb cartoon projected, 40, 50 feet in the air in partial, like in 270 degrees.
Wow.
And it looked pretty good. I was surprised.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
And I know a lot of people in the audience, especially that team here, with the voice actors and different talent that we have here. I know we constantly hear of like how someone can be a voice actor with the different platforms. So for anyone that's watching, if they're interested in being a voice actor or presenting one of their animation projects that they want your company to consider, what would be the best advice you can give them on doing that?
It's kind of hard because for a company our size, we can't really take unsolicited requests because it just gets to be complicated legally, But one thing I love is when we do conventions like Momocon, I love it when people come up and show us their stuff. And that's how we met a lot of the people that work at Rooster Teeth, honestly. We've hired from our first music producer all the way up to Monty, at almost every step of the way, we've hired from the community. And a lot of the ways we do that, one of the guys who writes Ruby, his name is Kerry Shawcross, he met us at PAX, introduced himself, and told us he was going to be our intern. He lived in San Antonio, we live in Austin. And then one day he just showed up to be our intern, and now he writes Ruby, right?
Wow.
So come out and meet us in person. I had a kid yesterday who's about 14 who brought his iPad and showed me his first ever animation. It was fabulous.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful way to get to know us.
Okay, awesome. So any of your creators that are out there, definitely keep that in mind as far as getting yourself being seen and your vision of it being brought to the forefront. For those voice actors that are out there, for your upcoming projects, is there a way that they can to audition for potential roles?
That's a great question. I unfortunately am probably not the best person in the company to answer. I don't handle that side of the business. I know that when we're doing a new production at Rooster Teeth, we send out an internal call, and then so we try to find people within the company within our talent pool, and then if we don't, I know that there's a mechanism to go external, but I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
But I do know that we have a jobs page on roosterteeth.com, and if you want to work with Rooster Teeth in any way, it's probably the best way to get there.
Okay. All right. So, also, like as your brand has been growing, do you all have any visions of like becoming the next version of Disney, like having one entity here, another different entity of Rooster Teeth here? This one's going to focus on kids. This is going to be gaming and live action.
Well, we've done our best to diversify in ways that make sense. We've taken some swings that didn't work. We've had a lot of success in other areas, and it's just funny you say Disney because that is a brand that we look to as we're 19 and a half years old now, and the founders are starting to get. Well, some of us have retired, and the rest of us are getting older by the day. We're just dwindling in front of the world. So we're trying to set Rooster Teeth up to be a multi-generational company, and Disney is a hell of a company to emulate.
Well, they've had a couple hundred years.
Yeah, pretty good run.
Exactly, to get it to what it is now. But I definitely see that, like I mentioned, for any of you who are watching these, definitely check out Ruby. That is one that caught my attention, and then of course I know from other congoers that told me about other shows that is on Rooster Teeth and all. And for those that are not familiar with Rooster Teeth, where can they tune in to be able to watch your products?
You can go to roosterteeth.com, or you can go to YouTube and search for Rooster Teeth or Achievement Hunter or Funhouse or any of our different brands or Let's Play, any of our gaming properties. But yeah, roosterteeth.com is a great place to start.
Awesome. And of course with Ruby and that end up picking up such fandom that you end up, now have the ability to get it on DVD and be able to watch some of the past episodes. Is there any other series that we can look forward to on Rooster Teeth that we can find on DVD for those that like to have the physical
media.
copies?
Yeah, it's tough, man. DVDs, they don't sell like they used to. We do have some new series coming out, things to check out, some new Ruby stuff coming out. Whether it's on DVD or not, I'm not sure. But
Digital download?
definitely digital download.
Okay, awesome. So of course, like I said, I can't express how much definitely check out Ruby. That is one of my favorites. And I also have a question of, as y'all were doing Ruby through the season, you can, for those that have been watching it for a while, you kind of saw how the animation transition as the series progressed. Was that a planned decision to kind of change to make that look a more sleeker and move differently versus the first couple seasons? Or was that something that was, okay, we can make this better?
I think it's I would hate to speak for the animation team, but I will say I think it's a product of, or a function of having more resources and more time, hopefully, and just honing in and getting better at what we do.
Okay, well, definitely everyone, definitely go to any of the outlets that you mentioned to check out their miniseries. You will definitely find something that is for you through their brand, because they are definitely, I kind of call your brand the indie Disney. Like you are,
there you go.
You're bringing the forefront on changing the look and feel, but also having that unique storytelling that pull people in. And with you keeping that formula, is that part of how you decide what stuff comes to air as you get new series?
We've always just kind of tried to make content that we would want to watch, and kind of trust in that sensibility, and it seems to be going okay so far.
Nice, very nice. And as you mentioned, you have some new series. Are there any you can talk about that we can be looking forward to?
There are. Unfortunately, I have. There's a couple things we're going to be announcing at RTX in July, and so I can't announce it here. But stay tuned. Yeah, we'll have some new stuff to announce.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that announcement and seeing what else I can add to my watch list. Any other questions from the audience? Well, once again, we'd like to thank you so much for being part of Momocon and definitely taking a moment out of your time to let the audience that could not be here learn a little bit more about you and Rooster Teeth.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in and enjoying our Momocon coverage. So if you guys, we want to know your feedback, your thoughts, and if any questions you may have for us in regards to our specific coverage, some feedback that you may have for us, as well as any thoughts for any of our future coverage as well. So here you go, folks. This is how you can contact us. We want to know your thoughts, your feedback, even any questions you might have for us by sending us a read email on our Discord server, leaving a voice note over at england.fm, /TheImpactPlay, or even by sending us an email to reademail@TheImpactPlay.com. Who knows, we may even be featured on a special read email segment or even a read email special episode of the show. So thank you guys so much for making us a part of your day. If you wish to join our community server over on Discord, be sure to enter exclamation Discord in chat now. Guys, we're trying to like subs over on Twitch, and we need your help. So Twitch is only one that is the only goal that has been straying away from us, and is the only one that has been so hard to overcome. So help us overcome this obstacle that has been straying away from us for a while now by giving us a follow on Twitch. Hit the notification bell and just lurk a few months, because every little bit helps us. Thank you guys so much. Leave us a review and just a rating on your favorite platform. Have a good one, and until next time, folks.